right, I'm going to go ahead and call this May 8th meeting of Somerville School Committee's order with a moment of silence and salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the school committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. In fact, one of our members is actually remote. Ms. Dion is out sick, but she is with us via remote. We'll post an audio video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. As you can tell, my voice has seen better days. I'll power through as hard as long as I can. If it gives out, I'll hand the gavel over to Ms. Creption. Dr. Carly, we call the roll.
Happy to. Dr. Ackman.
Here.
Mayor Ballantyne. Ms. Patone.
Here.
Dr. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Dion.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Here.
Thank you. Ms. Barish.
Here.
President Ewan-Campen.
Here.
Ms. Creption.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will do our interpreters, and I believe we only have 2 this evening, so we'll start with our Spanish interpreter.
Muy buenas noches, mi nombre es Erika García, seré su intérprete de español. Para escuchar esta reunión en español, haga un clic en el globo que se encuentra en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y seleccione español. Good evening, my name is Erika Garcia. I will be your Spanish interpreter for tonight. To listen to this meeting, click the globe at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. Thank you.
And our Portuguese interpreter.
Alô, boa noite, meu nome é Ben Cruz, eu vou ser seu intérprete hoje em português. Então, para você ouvir essa reunião hoje virtual no seu idioma, você vai ter que ver lá embaixo na tela, aí o ícone não é de intérprete, você vai clicar aí e você vai ouvir tudo em português. Good evening, my name is Ben Cruz and I will be your Portuguese interpreter for this evening.
All right, thank you. We have one of our student reps with us, so next on the agenda, we will hear from them. Anna Sophia, are you there?
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. We met with the nutrition director last week, Karen Nowakowski, and got some insight on how the lunch works at our school, and gave some input on like what we like, what we don't like, what we change, like that. We have been having the AP exams for this week and last week. There was the AP US History exam on Friday, and then the AP Calculus exam. 10th grade MCAS is next week, Math MCAS. The multicultural fair has been practicing and planning. It's on May 26th. The seniors leave on the 19th, and they have prom that night. And the lacrosse team, an 8-win streak.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Anna Sophia. All right. That brings us to approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 20th minutes.
I move to approve the March 20th minutes. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I have a motion from Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Creption, to approve the March 20th minutes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Which brings us to public comment. Just so we're clear, what I'm going to do is after public comment, I'm going to take an item out of order and we'll go straight to the building discussion. Hearing any, all right, any objections? All right, we have 22 people signed up for public comment. Again, pending further guidance from the SJC. I'm not going to go through the process of reading through all of our rules. Just have to say that each speaker will have 2 minutes, and I urge all people to speak with respect and to give each other grace. So we'll start with Elizabeth Clark, then Tim Devon, and then Julie Scafidi. Elizabeth, the floor is yours. I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah. Hold on. Speak.
Should I? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a parent to a Winter Hill School kindergartner. I am also a classroom teacher in another district. I am just here to express concern. I know what it's like to teach in a building that is too hot, that has failing facilities, whether it's the intermittently working elevator or the leaky sinks or the occasional water main break that has required early pickup. There's no doubt right now to me that the condition that the building is in is negatively impacting the learning of our children. And maybe the building can hang on for a couple more years, but it sounds like there's no current plan in place for what happens when the problems in the building get worse, as they no doubt will. So there needs to be a plan in place now so that there's somewhere for our children to go in the interim while that's being figured out that will not cause any further disruption to their learning. So, there you go.
Thank you. Before we move on, are you going to put the timer up, or should I do it on my? No, it's okay. Just need to know if I need to do it on my phone. All right, no problem. Coming up, we won't start until Ms. Santiago's ready, but we have Tim Devon, then Julie Scafidi, then April Luna.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So my name is Tim Devon. I live at 91 Summer Street. I'm a parent of a third grader at Genziano, and I'm here today to express my concern over the effects of decreased staffing levels in the after-school program. Like many SPS parents, my child is on the wait list for the after-school program next year. The wait list is a lot longer this year, and I've been told that this is because of an issue getting enough staff. My spouse and I both work full-time jobs, and we need after school to keep our jobs. We commend the mayor for promising to increase the budget next year. We heard about that, and we think that's fantastic. We're deeply grateful for all that the school committee has done and the city councilors have done, but we're still being told that there are no guarantees and that we should make other plans. So, this means that right now, like many other parents with kids on the wait list, we're about to start competing for the very few slots in the private after-school market here in town. These providers have a limited number of slots, they're expensive, and they don't always provide necessary transportation in the middle of the day to get kids from school to their facilities. So as a result, parents who can't afford a spot or can't find one will have to choose between putting their jobs in jeopardy, right, by providing care for their kids themselves, or leaving their young kids unattended. Those who are lucky enough to be able to get a slot will have their budgets severely strained. So please address this dire situation by fast-tracking the hiring process of after-school staff. Please hire enough staff so that no one is left on the wait list. And please do so soon so that these changes will actually help people. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Julie Scafidi, followed by April Luna and Kara Dodd. And if I massacre your name, please correct me. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Julie Scafidi, and I am a middle school math teacher at the Winter Hill Community School. This is my 13th year there. My mom went through all of the school systems in Somerville, and when she comes in to help me set up my classroom, she is quite disgusted by the mouse poop and the cockroaches that we clean up, the holes in my wall. And I say, well, that's just how the building is, Mom. And we've just kind of accepted it and just moved along with it, but it's getting to the point where we really can't do that. There are staff members being put in closets that they don't have control over the lights. They have to walk into classrooms. Kids get serviced in these closets, and some kids don't like getting pulled for services. Now they have to walk into a classroom and be around all of these other people. It's very unsettling for these children. They shouldn't have to go through that. And my math closet is now no longer going to be a storage closet. It's going to be a take-a-break room. And so now I have to store 9 books per student in my classroom, or find storage in the building where there is no storage, because our storage closet is now a classroom. So I will have bookcases moved from my closet to the back of my room, because at Winter Hill we don't have storage space in our classrooms. We have to make our own, get our own bookcases from, sidewalk sales. We don't have actual built-in storage anywhere. So I will have my back wall taking away from room for my kids to spread out with shelves of math supplies instead of having a place to put that. So 4 classes, 9 books per child in the back room. So that's kind of where I'm at, and so hopefully we could kind of get this fixed sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Next, we have April Luna, followed by Kara Dodd and Caitlin Donaldson.
Hi, my name is April Luna, and I'm one of the 6th grade teachers at Winter Hill. Space issues, as you've just heard from Julie mentioning, are a constant issue that we just find ways to work around. Right now, my classroom is right next door to one of the closets that was turned into an office, so there's a teacher or a service provider has to service students in that room. And I'm also next door to one of our AIM classrooms where, and we've talked about the paper-thin walls, and so if one of the students in my room is having a difficult time, their classroom's going to hear it. If one of the students in that classroom is having a difficult time managing emotions, we're going to hear it, regardless of what's happening in a day, regardless if it's an MCAS day. So the first day of MCAS testing, there was a student next door who had a really difficult time, and my students kept looking at me. I made a phone call, and then it's not fair to the other teacher to try to make her do the impossible to keep students who are not going to understand why they need to be silent in their classroom. So my workaround was to go on Amazon and get earplugs for my students, which we used, and that was the best workaround. But I feel like at this point, our students need to know that there's a plan, that they are a priority. It's just not fair to them. It's not fair for the teacher on the other side. It's not fair to my students. And I just feel like we came to you a year ago, we came to you 6 weeks ago, and there's still not a set plan. So we really are coming, like that's why we're all here again tonight, and we're all tired. It's the end of the year. We're tired, but we're here because we need your help. We need you to make a concrete plan for us. Thank you.
Kara Dodd, followed by Caitlin Donaldson and Gwyneth Davies.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kara Dodd. I'm a Ward 5 resident and an educator at the Winter Hill. I'm speaking tonight regarding growing concerns that Winter Hill is generally an afterthought to the district and the city as a whole. Since we were here last time sharing concerns about the state of our building, a special education position has been cut from our school. Myself and the other special education resource room teachers have been told we need to vacate the classroom that we share and do not have a designated space for next year where we'll service students. Staff are being asked to clear out closets between classrooms so they can be occupied as offices for next year, as you've heard. The lack of regard, though, goes far beyond the condition of our building. Data from school year 2021 to 2022 shows that the Winter Hill had the highest percentage of students who could qualify for math intervention in the district. Despite that data, our school did not see a district math interventionist for even 1 quarter during this year, while other schools received between 2 and 4 cycles of intervention. The These choices and disregards send a really clear message to our students and our staff that we are not a priority and that we do not matter and that we're not worth investing in. The mayor's plan of delaying our building work until 2026 at the earliest further perpetuates this message that Winter Hill is an afterthought. I hope that you all, and I appreciate the work that you've done so far, will prioritize our students' needs by rejecting the budget as it stands with cuts to these student-facing positions and pass a resolution to leverage the 1895 building until the mayor commits to rebuilding Winter Hill within 3 years. Thank you.
Next, we have Caitlin Donaldson, followed by Gwyneth Davies, and then Melissa Moore.
Hello all, my name is Caitlin Donaldson and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Winter Hill. I've been a teacher there for the last 9 years and I love my building and I love my students and I love my community. I don't know what else to say about the building except for we came to a year ago, we came to 6 weeks ago, and now we're asking for more. The other thing that I actually wanted to talk about tonight was common planning time. Yay, common planning time. I actually had to present to the committee a little while ago. I really would like to encourage you to talk about it, to pass this. We've talked a lot about how this impacts our teachers and how we're going to improve our education. We can rely on each other for our resources, but the one thing we didn't talk about is how this impacts our paras. Our paras are our heart and soul of our buildings. They make our classrooms work. But guess what? Our paras also have contractual hours. They don't have to stay past our hours to talk about behavior plans, to be trained on the new curriculum, to talk ideas about what's happening in our classroom. I would love to have common planning time to sit with my parent and have an actual conversation with her. I noticed that you're working with a student. What do you see? Let's try this strategy. How are we doing this? That can't happen in a 15-minute, like, oh, good morning, how are you? Please set up this, this, and this. This is what we're doing today. Let's train our pairs. Let's work together. Let's create this environment because we know that we can have a more resourceful environment when we all work together with this common planning time. So please really think about it. We know that you're concerned with time on learning, but guess what? When there are more teachers, there are more pairs, there are more people who know what's going on in the curriculum, we can better utilize our time. So please, please support our common planning time and please pass it for the next year. Thank you.
Gwyneth Davies, followed by Melissa Moore, then Julia Kusiak. Carrie, thank you.
Hi, I'm Gwyneth Davies. I'm a second grade teacher at the Winter Hill. I've been teaching at Winter Hill for 3 years, and I love my school. At the previous meeting where we gave public comment on Winter Hill building, the mayor reiterated all of her and the city's efforts to support the children of Somerville with additional programming, etc. While I appreciate hearing about all of these various endeavors, I want to note that they are not a replacement for, a substitute for, an alternative to a functioning and robust public school system, at the heart of which is the building. The most basic level. I am frustrated when these pursuits are mentioned in our conversation about our school building. Having a functional school building is not a negotiable. It is not a bargaining chip or a cherry on top. It is a fundamental legal right that our children have. And whatever else good that is being done for the kids of Somerville does not negate that desperate need. This school is the city's duty and obligation. I will not belabor the endless list, or seemingly endless list, of dangers and inadequacies of our building, because you already have heard. Many, including myself, have already done this, and at this point, I can only hope that the urgency has been communicated by all the people showing up over and over again to tell you, please understand, it is really bad. The conditions are reprehensible, it's unacceptable, full stop. However, I will end by saying that as educators, we choose to walk into our school building every morning to serve our students, the most precious in the city. Our students do not have a choice. They have to go to that building. They do not just get to go somewhere else. I believe in the power of love, active love, and justice-seeking love. It's a power that can move mountains. And if we love our kids, we can move mountains to give them the school they deserve. I implore you to do absolutely everything in your power to right this wrong and to fix this problem. We cannot wait.
Melissa, then Julia Kusiak Carey, then Kate Margulis.
I am Melissa Moore, Ward 5 member and middle school science teacher at Winter Hill. Just 6 weeks ago, I came here to speak about how unfit and unsafe the Winter Hill school building is and how it's not conducive for a productive learning environment. The community and I have already told you about the numerous issues that I, our students, and colleagues deal with on a daily basis. Clearly, if we are back just 6 weeks later to theoretically repeat the same meeting we just had, we are not a priority for the city. I'm asking you to prove us wrong. Show our students that they matter by giving them the new building that they deserve. We asked for your help last year. We asked for your help 6 weeks ago. We have heard nothing. Now is the time we need to do something about the Winter Hill building.
Julia Carey, then Kate Margulis, and then Emily Henkel.
Hi, my name is Julia Kuziak-Carey. I'm a Ward 3 member, and I'm a multilingual educator at Winter Hill, and I work in the Newcomer Academy and in gen ed classrooms. I'm speaking tonight in support of a resolution where you, the Somerville School Committee, pledged to withhold the 1895 building from Mayor Ballantyne until she revises her capital improvement plan to include breaking ground on a new Winter Hill building within 3 years. As my colleagues have reiterated before, and as I spoke 6 weeks ago, the conditions at Winter Hill School are demoralizing. Before a big rainstorm, we got an email to move your supplies that you don't want to get wet. So to go into a weekend thinking about leaks causing leaks to classroom materials and resources that a lot we purchase ourselves, maybe like the earbuds that April spoke about, it's just really demoralizing. It's hard to do every day. So again, the conditions at Winter Hill are demoralizing. It's deplorable. The building is deteriorating. Please respect and take care of our city's most precious students. Thank you.
Kate Margulis, followed by Emily Henkel, followed by Shannon Rogers.
Hi, my name is Kate Margulis, and I'm a speech-language pathologist at the Winter Hill School. I work in the AIM program serving some of our autistic students, and it is particularly shocking to me that we are putting some of the highest need students in the city into a building that is so dysfunctional. Last year, when we had no air conditioning for weeks, I watched kids crying on the floor of my office because they were so overheated. Many of my students are non-speaking, and they can't easily communicate how they're feeling to me. It is incredibly upsetting to work so hard every day, to watch kids work so hard every day, to get their bodies calm and regulated to learn, only to watch them then fall apart because of their environment. This year, my office is in a storage room within another classroom. There is a large hole in the wall, and at the start of the school year, toys would fly in from the classroom next to me. The hole is now filled with a foam block, but the walls are so thin that my students and I can hear full meetings happening on one side and the students in the classroom next to me on the other. I find this very distracting as an adult, but I can't imagine how it must feel for my students, many of whom are extremely sensitive to noise. Again, I watch students fall apart, covering their ears and crying because they can't tolerate their environment. I don't know how we can expect our students to learn when we can't even give them their basic right to feel safe and comfortable at school. I hope you will work to meet our students' basic needs by passing a resolution to leverage the 1895 building until Mayor Ballantyne commits to rebuilding Winter Hill within 3 years. Thank you.
Emily Spicer Henkel, then Shannon Rogers, then Courtney Kauslau.
Thank you. My name is Emily Spicer Henkel. I am a mom of a kindergartner in the amazing Miss Donaldson's class, who we heard from earlier, and soon to be preschooler in the Miss Berkowitz's class next year, who is also amazing. We were with her last year. I'm at 13 Troll Street. I will be brief, as there are many others, as you have heard, who are more informed than myself about the processes of budgeting and planning. I lost my spot for the renovation of the Winter Hill School. Our family loves the community here, and it is an honor to speak with these teachers and these administrators and the other parents here. It has really just been an amazing experience to be a new parent with students at a school and at this school specifically. And I will keep turning up here and reaching out to all of you until I don't have to ask the teacher each morning, how is the room today? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? And other critical questions about the physical space of the building. However, I think I have heard last time and from my other parent friends that we all agree that the building is not good enough. So kind of as we've said, like, let's stop harping on that. And tonight, I want to ask for a clear, comprehensive, and timely plan to make sure we as parents, as teachers, and as a community can feel confident in our governing boards that everything is being done to give our children a safe and working building. If that means that the school committee holds on to buildings, namely the 1895 school building they have control over in order to get things done, then I support that decision. I would hope that we all can work together across city departments to just make this happen. But at this point, as a parent who cares obviously about my own kids, but also the kiddos of the parents here, and also the teachers and the administrators at Winter Hill School, and that I've met over these last 2 years, I will ask the school committee to do anything to make swift and clear progress. And I just want to add that I will show up again to talk about common planning time when that is on the table too. Thank you.
Shannon Rogers, then Courtney Kozlow, then Bev Feldman.
Hello, my name is Shannon Rogers. I'm the art teacher at Winter Hill, and I'm also a Somerville resident in Ward 6. My first 2 years in this district, I worked as a traveling art teacher between East Somerville School and Argenziano. During my time in those buildings, I was accustomed to expecting reliable Wi-Fi, real walls, consistent outlets, storage for materials and artwork, and space. They have space to hold their entire student body. I have now been working at Winter Hill for 2 years, and my room is a hallway. Neither of my double doors lock. Can you say major lockdown drill issue? My classroom is a cut through to the stairwell. Luckily, I'm an accommodating person, but this disrupts instruction and time on learning. Tonight, I'm wearing a fashionable clay medallion created by a first grade artist from Winter Hill. However, this clay had to take a trip to another school in the district with a reliable kiln. It took more than 10 people, high school electrical students, to come assess the issue, many of my prep periods, and after 5 months, it was just fixed last week. These teachers go above and beyond, outside of contractual hours, because it's what our students deserve. We will continue to advocate on behalf of our Winter Hill Wildcats. Thank you for your time, and please help Winter Hill students. They deserve your love and action.
Courtney Kozlow, Beth Feldman, Carrie Richmond.
Hello, my name is Courtney Kozlow, 11 Glenwood Road, proud parent of Winter Hill third grader. I've been here before, and I know that this committee understands what we're saying and really has prioritized this. Submitting the statement of interest really showed the support. However, we still, as everyone has heard, don't have a plan from the city, and we really we need to see this school committee pass a resolution, use the leverage that you have with the 1895 building, and push for a plan that includes timelines. That is not 2026 to possibly have a design. That is, I develop affordable housing faster than that, and that is saying a lot because it's a really cumbersome process. So I know that it can be done faster, and we haven't seen anything here that shows that it's understood that this needs to be prioritized faster. That being said, I also want to speak to the school budget and the math interventionist. I understand that there were 4 slots this past year, 4 staff positions, 3 staff positions, 1 was unfilled. That unfilled position was intended for Winter Hill. So as you heard, we have had no math intervention. Our very creative assistant principal found a tutor that was not licensed as a teacher. It was part-time for half the year. My daughter has been using this, the tutor, but what she's missing is from the pandemic years ago. That is not what a tutor looks at. They look at today. They don't go back to the past. So we have the privilege of paying for a master's level teacher who is being a math interventionist at home. That's something that so many people at the school can't do. We're providing something that the school should be providing. So we need to fund this 4th person, and also for next year to reallocate the existing hired math interventionist to be sure that Winter Hill is covered. Thank you.
Beth Feldman, Carrie Richmond, Ben Cynical.
Good evening. My name is Bev Feldman, and I am a parent of a third grader and a rising kindergartner at Winter Hill Community Innovation School. And I want to thank all the educators and staff who are here tonight and everyone else for coming this evening as well. And I'm speaking tonight in support of a resolution where you, the Somerville School Committee, pledge to withhold the 1895 building from Mayor Ballantyne until she revises her capital improvement plan to include breaking ground on a new Winter Hill school building within 3 years. So my family actually moved within Somerville in fall 2020, where we went from living a short walk to West Somerville Neighborhood School, where my younger daughter had been at school, to just a few blocks from the Winter Hill Community Innovation School. And I really wanted my children to be able to go to school with other kids in the neighborhood and to be able to easily walk to school. And though we never toured the Winter Hill School, and we also had legitimate building concerns because it was the only school that students were not allowed to return to in the spring of 2021, we had heard such amazing things about the Winter Hill community. So we made the decision with our child to transfer her to the school, to transfer her from West Somerville, which has a pretty nice building, to Winter Hill. And we really do love the community. My third grader has felt so welcome since she transferred. She has amazing classmates and teachers. The educators and administrators care so deeply about students and families. And we look forward to our rising kindergartner joining her sister at Winter Hill in the fall. But being a member of this school's community, I have truly been horrified to hear about the building issues. And when I asked my third grader yesterday about, what does she think about the building, she mentioned wishing that the heating and air conditioning worked consistently and complaining that the school often feels stuffy, making it difficult for her to learn. So if she's struggling, I imagine a lot of her classmates are also struggling. So I hope you'll work to meet our students' needs by passing a resolution to leverage the 1895 building until Mayor Ballantyne commits to rebuilding the school. Thank you.
Carrie Richmond, Ben Senegal, Brendan Brooklyn.
Hi, again. Carrie Richmond, 21 Quincy Street, Somerville. I am a fourth year para in the AIM program at Winter Hill, and one of our students is here today. Woo! All right, so the irony of this week being Teacher Appreciation Week, as we sit here on this beautiful Monday evening debating whether or not we will have classrooms for our students, is not lost on me. It feels exhausting to know that in the past year since we brought the mayor a petition begging for a plan for Winter Hill, the only thing that has happened is an inconclusive study and a rushed application for possible funding forced through again by us. But I thought that if we have to be here, I might as well make it a teaching moment. In my classroom, we talk a lot about being brave when things are hard, about saying sorry when you do something wrong, and then fixing the problem because sorry is an action word. And we talk about setting boundaries to take care of ourselves, because we can only ask for what we want. We cannot control others, but we can control ourselves. So let's practice. Let's take a moment to stop, think, and act. Think. Have I used my words to ask for what I need? Yes. And did it work? No. So now we can act. We can say, if you will not take care of my things and treat them with respect, then I will keep them to myself, because you have shown that you do not care about them. Hopefully, as a community, we can then begin to repair this neglect and trust with each other. And when I see that you are ready to treat my things with respect, then we can try again. And we end, as always, with a deep breath. So keeping this lesson in mind, I urge the school committee to pass a resolution to leverage the 1895 building until there is a commitment to rebuilding Winter Hill in the next 3 years. Thank you.
Ben Senegal, Brendan Brooklyn, Sarah Coulier.
Hi, I'm Ben Senecal, and I should have taken Carrie up on her offer to let me go first, I guess. That was pretty powerful. I can't say anything that hasn't already been said here tonight, and I honestly am at a loss for words with how cumbersome this whole process has been, and the next step is going to be even more cumbersome, coming up with a plan to where to build a school and all of that. But the fact that it's not even in writing on when we're going to start doing that until 3 years from now is just unfair and completely unreasonable. And if us coming here, talking to you, has not hammered home that point, last time we spoke, I spoke about the outdoor space at our school and the community that it breeds. And right now, the weather is beautiful. That area is flourishing. So if you are any bit on the fence, I implore you, stop by at around 3 o'clock any day this week. There will be tens of kids and families out there that you can speak to, and you can hear their concerns, and you can see that they deserve more than what we're getting right now. And I implore you to do that. Thank you.
Hi, Brendan Buckland, Dean of Students at Winter Hill, Ward 3 resident and voter. I want to echo what has already been stated, but I also want to draw attention to the timeline, which in an optimistic, if we're optimistic, in 3 years' time, we may have a shovel in the ground for Winter Hill, but I'll believe it when I see it. So I wanted to bring some attention to some things that may happen in 3 years' time. In 3 years' time, we may see 3 to 2.5 generations of mice at the Winter Hill. That's assuming a 12 to 18-month lifespan. A staff member could give birth to 2 kids and have 2 generous paternity-maternity leaves in that time. 6th graders at Winter Hill currently will be in their first year at the brand new high school. A first-year teacher will acquire professional teaching status that, in spite of the heat, the cold, the crowding, the poor internet, and leaking at Winter Hill, there will be 2 more election cycles for school committee and mayor in that time period. And you know that as educators, we have a lot of time in the summer to organize. 7th grade students will be getting their driving permits in 3 years' time. In 3 years' time, 8th grade Winter Hill students will be writing their college admission essays about overcoming adversity. Every week I have the privilege of taking 3rd grade students to the Kennedy School and taking them to their swim lessons. And this is a true story. A 3rd grader turned to a friend of his when they walked into the Kennedy School and said, "Wow, is this a real school?" In 3 years' time, that 3rd grade student will still be at the Winter Hill building. My push to action for you all and for our city is, will that building look different in 3 years' time? Thank you.
Sarah Coa, Inez Santos, and Ali Contini-Field.
Hello, my name is Sarah Coulter. I am a Ward 3 member. I've lived here in Somerville for 6 years. I came to Somerville to be an educator. I went to Tufts for grad school, and I have continued to stay here because I see my future here. I see raising my children, but I'm here today as a concerned community member, and I'm asking for a clear, comprehensive plan for rebuilding the Winter Hill Community Inclusion School. I also have the distinct pleasure of being a caregiver to many children who attend the Argenziano, Healy, Capuano, and Kennedy. I love babysitting. And I hear often about the joy they feel in their peaceful, comfortable, safe, and appropriate buildings. They tell me about their wonderful schools and how happy they are. I do have friends who have children in the Winter Hill School, so I do know the conditions, and we all know the conditions. You very thoughtfully have told them, and I appreciate it. But I fortunately have the privilege to wait for my imaginary family to come. They don't. It's time now. I know you're aware of the conditions. I know you submitted a plan. I know you're working on it. That's not enough. They are telling you what they need, and you don't seem to be understanding. This needs to happen now. We need to take the school building and hold it until there is a clear and comprehensive plan for Winter Hill. I am very concerned that this is the response and it's taken a year to get just here. So I just want you to know that the community is behind you and we support you, and thank you. Please do what you can.
Hello, I'm Inês Santos. I'm a resident of 18 James Street, and I have a kindergartner at Winter Hill and a 4-year-old who will be in pre-K in the fall. She'll be at the Winter Hill School for 10 years, so I'm extremely motivated to have a better building and a better space for them both to grow in. I fully support everything that the teachers, administrators, and other parents have said tonight, but I also wanted to address you all, and I was very hopeful to address Mayor Ballantyne through the chair, as I understand is customary. I'm extremely disappointed by the response we got the last couple of meetings that I've attended from our mayor. I appreciate, like another teacher has mentioned today, I appreciate that a teen center exists. I appreciate that the mayor finds herself to be a friend of the youth, but I have not heard the thing I want to hear, which is our mayor say, this is my city, this is my school, these are my children, and this is unacceptable. I think we deserve to hear those words from our elected officials. This is unacceptable, and I really fully expect to hear that from you all, because it's unfair to talk to us about other accomplishments. Not everything is an election cycle, and not everything is an election speech. I don't need to know about the teen center when we're talking about there being rain inside my child's school, or about there being vermin where these tiny children are trying to learn how to read. So I wanted to request that we hear those words from our mayor and our school council and from our city council. And I also wanted to request that some effort be put into a better communication bridge between our elected officials and all of us, because we learned last time that some efforts were in place and we had absolutely no idea that that was going on. At least as a parent, I didn't. I would love to see a liaison that comes to our school meetings and who can communicate with us what the process is supposed to be, and so that we can have informed opinions on how those processes can be changed. Thank you.
Eileen Contini-Field, Rami Bridge, and then Megan Brady.
Hello. I'm Eileen Contini-Field. I'm a parent at Winter Hill of a 3rd grader and a kindergartner. And I'm a resident of Ward 3, and a lot of people have said a lot of good things about the building. So I just wanted to press on the budget for next year and the math interventionist position. I think that given that Winter Hill has some of the lowest academic scores in the city, I think, and the teachers have been planning all year to have that position. They've been talking about having that position for next year, and they've been so optimistic about what they can do with that position. I think in a situation where we're asking educators to do more with less building, this is an opportunity to actually give them a specific more, like to give them this position, this math position. I think it would do a world of good next year, even if we can't do anything about the building and it just stays hot and cramped and all the other things. Thank you.
Rami Bridge, then Megan Brady.
Outrageous. It is outrageous that for years our school buildings have not been maintained properly. It is outrageous that when they were assessed in the fall of 2020, it was discovered that the Winter Hill was in such disrepair that it could not open in the spring of 2021 with the rest of the Somerville Public Schools. It is outrageous that even after finding all the unresolved issues, mind you, issues that educators at the Winter Hill have been flagging for years, and fixing those issues, the building approached 90 degrees for multiple days in a row last year. It is outrageous that after the continued public advocacy of those same educators, the response of the city was just to budget an assessment of the building. It is outrageous that after this, the Winter Hill was still not a high enough priority to be included in the city's 5-year capital improvement plan. It is outrageous that upon learning this, educators had to come back to the school committee in March pleading for support, only to be gaslit by the director of asset management, claiming it is a priority and part of the plan, which it isn't, since it's still not listed on the website for the CIP. It is outrageous that the previously funded study, the one announced a year ago as the response to the continued state of disrepair of the Winter Hill, did not begin until after we came to that school committee meeting. It is outrageous that last week the Director of Asset Management's big announcement was an update that construction won't begin for 3 years. It is outrageous that no one will say when construction will begin or how it will be funded. It is outrageous that we have had to keep advocating. Watertown just rebuilt all of their school buildings without any involvement or advocacy from parents or educators or a union because it was the right thing to do. At what point will the school committee share our outrage and publicly state that they won't release the 1895 wing of Somerville High School until there is a real, public, detailed plan for addressing the state of the Winter Hill building?
And finally, Megan Brady's on Zoom, and she will have the last word.
Good evening. My name is Megan Brady, and I'm an educator from the Winter Hill. You've heard from countless educators, caregivers, community members, and students themselves about why the building desperately needs to be rebuilt. And you've been hearing it for years. The mayor's current timeline is unacceptable, and inaction on your part tonight would be equally unacceptable. You've created a joint committee with the City Council on school maintenance, and that was a good idea, but it's not a solution. The statement of interest was a first step, but that's not enough. Like others tonight, I'm calling upon you to pass a resolution wherein you commit to leveraging the 1895 building until Mayor Ballantyne revises her capital improvement plan to include breaking ground on a new building within 3 years. In the last week, I've started rewriting my 8th grade civics unit on local government. The unit next year will be a case study of their own school building, through which they better understand the various and overlapping roles of the mayor, city council, and school committee. That's topic 6, standard 10. And the primary source material for this unit will include clips from various public meetings about the Winter Hill, including tonight's. They'll get to see local government and democracy in action, and they'll hear what you say and do about their building. And they know the building and funding of schools is your responsibility because it's listed in topic 6, standard 7. Lastly, and most importantly, they'll learn from you how, if at all, a local government responds to pressing needs. Topic 4, standard 11, says 8th graders will be able to evaluate elected representatives, including identifying those who demonstrate political courage and those whose actions have failed to live up to their ideals. How do you want students to see you? What conclusions about local government do you want them to have? That's up to you. Thank you.
That concludes public comment. As I mentioned before, bar any objection, I'll take an item out of order, and we'll start this meeting with the building update. Dr. Carly, anything you want to say to begin? Did they sign up on time, Ms. Santiago? She didn't sign up in time, I'm sorry. But she's welcome to sign up for our next meeting. Dr. Curley.
All right. Thank you, through you, Chair. I just want to give a brief update on where we stand from the district's perspective, from the city's perspective. I want to first start just by acknowledging and thanking everyone for being here tonight, acknowledging and apologizing. You shouldn't have to be here advocating for your school building. your jobs are hard enough, and the work you do, especially at this time of year, is it's just extremely challenging. I'm just going to give you all and the public listening an update on where we stand in the progress since you were here 6 weeks ago, and where I believe we will be in our progress over the next few months. The mayor is not here tonight. She is at a Ward 6 Resistat meeting, but we have been working with her team, and these remarks and kind of the update are something that we worked on together. She asked that I commit or convey that her commitment is towards our school facilities, both in the short term and the long term needs of those facilities. But the Winter Hill is obviously the immediate priority here, and that is true both of the district, the mayor, and the city. And I apologize, I'm really tired, so I'm going to try to just read some of my remarks, if you don't mind. So while we acknowledge there are plenty of deferred maintenance needs that you all have given voice to, the reality of planning the long-term building or reconstruction of the school is going to take some time. Since you were last here, as I think everyone knows, we did put in a full application to the Mass School Building Authority. Our hope is that that will be supported, that MSBA will give us a good bit of the funding to fully rebuild the Winter Hill School. In the meantime, there are things that we have to do in preparation for MSBA, whether or not they're the part of the financial solution for the school. So some of those processes are underway. I'm not going to go into an incredible amount of detail about them, but we are working on a building assessment. We're working on capacity assessment of the Winter Hill and the Brown, and there are going to be some additional processes starting with the city later this month. In the meantime, we also acknowledge that there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done in the school, and there's a need for emergency planning or interim planning should we lose the Winter Hill to some issue that, as has happened in other schools, has happened with the East, with the fire, with the Brown, with the roof collapse. We are working with the city on those things, and we have the city's commitment, regardless of how the MSBA process goes, to use whatever they can in their financial toolbox to help us bring those solutions forward. Part of this work is trying to figure out the different scenarios that could be used to make sure that we have a new school as quickly as possible, and we are investigating those different possibilities, whether they be building offsite or rebuilding onsite at the Winter Hill. You know, I want to also acknowledge, I know this will not necessarily be popular, but there is a whole lot of deferred maintenance challenges in the city that if you drove or biked here on Highland Ave, you experienced at least one of those challenges. This work does and should, within the capital improvement plan, fit within that overall need of the city and make sure that we have obviously not just schools that meet our students' needs, but all of the other human services, the safe streets and roads that our families and we count on to get to and from school. But I want to be clear, like, we can do multiple things at once. We can take on challenging things. I'm not trying to use the deferred maintenance challenges of the city to say that this needs to be put behind any of those. And so over the next few months, we're going to be kicking off a gap analysis. We're going to be reporting out publicly a Winter Hill assessment and renovation potential. This will be a report delivered by an outside consultant group. That should be available in mid-June. And then we expect within the next 6 to 12 months, we'll have a building committee formed to start working on this project. That committee, as it had with the high school, will include representatives from school committee, city council, our SPS administrators, our educators, and our broader community. So In short, we are making progress. There will be more information coming. We're going to start reporting out on where we are at each point in the joint special joint committee. That's a joint committee of both the district and the city. And then from that, we're going to ask, hopefully, Ms. Patone to report out on school committee meetings on the progress of this work, and post major milestone of this work on a project website that is being stood up right now. All that technical stuff being said, like I fully recognize that for many of you here and probably folks tuning in, like this still feels insufficient. The bottom line is I want to convey that we're trying to move on this work as fast as possible from the district side, and we're committed to working with the city and seeing it through and getting you all the building that you and your students deserve as quickly as possible, being transparent and updating you on the progress that we make, and trying to answer any and all questions that we can along the way. So that is my update for tonight. Again, thank you all for being here, and I'm sorry that you have to be here.
All right, so procedurally, there was a resolution put before this body by Ms. Patone that was tabled until tonight. It is therefore taken off the table and is available for discussion, deliberation, and a vote this evening. Ms. Patone, do you want to start the conversation, or?
Thank you, through you. I think, first I do want to thank everyone for being here, not only tonight, but multiple nights, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is not a new issue or a new concern, and I don't even want to use the word patience, because it doesn't even really fit it right now. This is an incredibly emotional and frustrating situation, and I really feel for the students, the families, and the staff. The intention was to try to get this ball rolling before COVID, and we were not able to make that happen. But it's not an excuse, and it's not acceptable. So I want to thank Superintendent Skipper, my goodness, Interim Superintendent Curley, who has really been rolling up his sleeves and really working with the city to try to get this ball rolling as quickly as possible. And it would, I would be mistaken to not acknowledge that. This resolution, as written, I think covers the bulk of the concerns. I would add something at the end about creation of a communication plan with the community and public bodies, which I do know is in the works, but I still think it should be declared specifically. Based on hearing from the community, I think that the school committee, as much as I don't like to operate in this way, and I've had conversations with many people, I think we have to be explicit about unless and until there's confidence in a plan moving forward with more specificity around dates and activities, as well as something we discussed on Monday night at the building committee was consideration of doing some items in parallel. Not everything has to be done in series. I don't think the school committee is in a position to be able to vote on releasing a building that nobody wants to hold hostage, because we all want to move forward with city offices and all this work has to be done. But I don't think we necessarily have a choice at this point. We've been working this for a long time, but for the last 5 months, been kind of a full court press, and we're really not where we want to be. So I'm going to add at the end to this creation and execution of a communication plan with the community and public body. And I tried to draft something, but if my colleagues have better language around how to address the 1895, I would be open to that if people are interested in including that in this resolution. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Barish?
I'm just curious, can you share the language that you attempted? Because
Yes, that
I don't have any.
That's okay. I can share what I attempted just now. At the end, after the reference to the communication plan, the school committee will consider the release of the 1895 building to the city once these requests are considered and addressed. But if people have better language, I would very much welcome it.
As a purely procedural thing, I might ask that we say we will not consider it before, because saying we will once it happens implies they have asked us, which they have technically not yet done.
All right.
And I'm still not going to consider it until I'm asked.
Okay.
Ms. Dion?
Explicitly clear. I'm sorry, it's difficult for me to keep up in this format, but I really appreciate Catherine and everyone accommodating me isolating today. I think even saying like we will consider the release of the 1895 building only when this is met, like putting in that word only, I think makes it clear that we won't entertain releasing it until these things are in place.
Thank you. Ms. Krebsen?
Thanks. Here is my attempt at the language for the end of your resolution, Laura. The school committee will not consider releasing the 1895 building to the city until the body is satisfied that the plan for a new building is in place, there is a plan for what to do in the interim, and there is a plan for a swing space if we need one.
Through you, Chair Green, can you say it again and slower to make sure we've all captured it?
I sure can. The school committee will not consider releasing the 1895 building to the city until the body is satisfied that the plan for a new building is in place, there is a plan for what to do in the interim, and there is a plan for a swing space if we need one.
Ms. Barish?
I'd like to suggest being more specific about what to do in the interim, maybe an interim maintenance plan, or because there's a lot of things that could happen in the interim.
Ms. Patone, these are all technically still friendly amendments, so your thoughts?
Through you, Chair Green, writing quickly. So plan until there is a plan to do in the interim, which I think Ms. Barish wants to be more specific about what we mean by a plan in the interim. And the best language that I've considered, because I've also talked to the city about this, is sort of a Winter Hill risk mitigation plan. So it's sort of like, how are we going to, because I know DPW is doing a great deal of maintenance and they're trying to create preventative maintenance plans and they're doing great work. However, there may be capital investments that have to happen in the Winter Hill over the next 5 years, because if we're going to, or 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So I was using the language risk mitigation plan. I don't know if that addresses your concerns, Ms. Barish.
Ms. Barish?
It addresses my concerns. I don't know if it is aligned with what Ms. Krebsen was.
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
I appreciate the efforts to give some teeth to this resolution, and I appreciate Ms. Krebsen's suggestion. The piece that I feel like we need to build out a little more is the emergency plan or the risk mitigation plan. Like, my understanding is that building is at capacity right now, right? Dr. Curley and Principal Gosselin just bought us a year by making people work in closets, but that's it. If we're really going to have an influx of folks from the border to Somerville, all those life students are going to the Winter Hill. If our AIM program continues to grow exponentially, all those students are going to the Winter Hill. We need to know where they're going because they can't fit there anymore. So what is it? It's more than a risk mitigation plan. I think as Mr. Raich thinks about it, I'm not sure what the phrase is, though. I wonder if one of you has a suggestion.
All right, so I'm gonna call myself, because this is what I've been thinking about, is that same question. And I'm not there yet, but here's what I've been thinking through. We as a body have pledged to have conversations about what's due to Cummings in the fall and in the spring. A conversation that probably realistically has to do with reinventing, at least visiting the question of, will we have a middle school, as has been bounced around, at least since I've been on this body. But whatever we do, I believe that we as a body have decided that we need to do something with the Cummings. So it may be that the actual thing is a commitment to fund the conversion of the Cummings into whatever we need it to be as a short-term thing. This is where I'm stuck. Dr. Phillips.
I wonder if what it is that in that last paragraph, we want a commitment from the city to fund additional space as it's required to house our students and teachers. And then if it is the Cummings, great. If it's portables, great. Whatever's the best solution. If it's buying Mattington, great. Like, whatever's the best solution.
Right. Ms. Patone.
Through you, Chair Green, I think, this language around a Winter Hill interim risk mitigation plan, I think you've appropriately identified it's not just about facility conditions, but also about capacity. And so I think if we add, Winter Hill interim risk mitigation plan, parentheses capacities and facilities condition, I don't know if that covers it. And I also am wondering, I'm asking the question to this body and to the chair, I don't know if we're going to exactly be able to wordsmith this perfectly right now, unless you feel confident right now that we can.
So I guess to give us a little bit more effort to try.
Okay.
Because if we could vote something out tonight, I would like to. But yes, it may be that we need to take the actual terms and work with them for a little bit longer. But I'd like to try it if we could. Dr. Ackman.
I think through the chair to Ms. Patone, I echo the chair's sentiment. I think no one on this body has really solid architectural planning knowledge. I'm comfortable keeping it broader in order to, not necessarily encompass every specific thing, but I think it is imperative for us to vote tonight.
Ms. Barish.
I just want to express that it doesn't have to be perfect. I think we can get the job done to the degree that will make the message clear to the city and to the Winter Hill community that we support them and value them and love that they're a part of our community, without making it perfect.
Right, I'm going to call myself Ms. Dion. It's in parts echo Ms. Barish's sentiment. The reality is, I don't see any chair of this body, myself or whoever comes after me, bring 895 up for a vote until these things happen in the President's resolution or not. So this is really just trying to stick a flag in the ground for the purposes of negotiations that are already ongoing. Ms. Dion.
I definitely think we should vote on it tonight. I just think that we should definitely specifically include the 1895 building in the resolution. So I don't know if I need to make a friendly amendment for that, or if we're going to use some language that someone has already suggested, but I think that needs to explicitly be in there.
I believe that is the consensus of this body. I think we're just trying to figure out now what including that means. But I believe my read of the body is that is the consensus. Ms. Barish.
I'm through you to Ms. Patone. I wonder if I'm just thinking about language here, something to the effect of pledge this, that we're asking the city to pledge to support the facilities needs for, or facility, no, the support with facilities the growing programming needs for the populations currently served at the Winter Hill Community School. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, and I'm, through the chair, I'm completely fine with this not being perfect, so I just want to make sure that it perfectly captures the ideas. It doesn't have to be perfectly articulated. The school committee, and this is a kind of a merge of Ms. Krepchen and what we had. So the school committee will not consider releasing the 1895 building to the city before. I like the before language from Chair Green. There's a clear plan to address the future of the Winter Hill Community Innovation School, a plan for an interim risk mitigation plan for the Winter Hill Community Innovation School, addressing both capacity and facility conditions, a plan for swing space when work is being done, and a pledge to support with facilities the growing programming needs for the population currently and in the future at the Winter Hill Community Innovation School. Lots of mumbles.
Dr. Phillips?
Minor suggestion. Can you take that last phrase that Ms. Barish suggested and just insert it where you have parentheses, facilities and space? Just say there will be a risk mitigation plan, there will be a plan for whatever Ms. Barish said, blah, 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 blah. I think it will flow and address what I was trying to add. Current and future.
If we're ready, I would like to second Ms. Patone's motion.
Is Ms. Patone ready?
Ms. Patone, are you ready?
Is Ms. Patone ready to have that be a motion?
Yes, as long as Ms. Santiago and I team up after this and figure it out.
It will not be the most elegant writing we've ever done as a body, but I think it gets the point across.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Ms. Patone, seconded by Ms. Krepchen. Any further discussion? I will just say that for myself, as the representative who covers Winter Hill, my very first vote on this body was to submit the plan to MSBA for the roof and the windows from Winter Hill, hoping they would buy us, 10 years. It failed. I have at most 2.5 more years on this body. I would like my last action to be attending a groundbreaking for a new Winter Hill. So let's get it done. I don't need a roll call vote. So I'm just going to ask, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we'll go back into the order of the body, and that brings us to the report of the superintendent. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and call a 2-minute recess so that we can say thank you to our teachers before they leave. So we're going to recess for 2 minutes.
The chair stepped out for just a moment, so I am taking over, but we do have a quorum. So let's continue this party. So with that, we have a district report. Dr. Curley, are we starting with the community schools?
Yes, thank you.
All right, community schools, take it away.
We have a group of folks here today. As promised in our last meeting, we want to give an update on out-of-school time, talk about community schools and other district investments. Our Director of Community Schools, Rosanna Parabello, is here. Our Chief of Staff, Susanna Hernandez-Morgan, and our Assistant Director of Operations, Chad Mazza, are going to team up to give an update on out-of-school time.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to come out and provide an update about out-of-school time programming. It's no secret that Somerville Public Schools is committed to supporting the whole child, and that means not just providing students with a rich learning experience during the school day, but also providing students with learning and enrichment experiences outside of the regular school day that help them explore their passions and gain important life skills. We're proud of the work we've done over the last few years to expand our programming through a blended model to better meet the needs of students. Working with our city and community partners, we're committed to continuing to build on that work and to develop structures that support continued growth and expanded access. Next slide, please. So we'll start our presentation with some general data, just to offer a sense of where we are now as an organization in terms of out-of-school time programming and supports. It's important that we continually assess where we are so that we're clear on where we need to go. Next slide. This year, more than 1,800 Somerville Public School students are participating in school-based structured out-of-school time programs. That's more than 38% of our overall student population that's being served in an array of high-quality programs. This includes programs such as community schools, partner-led programs that are embedded in our schools, and varsity and club sports. This is not an exhaustive list. Rather, it represents some of the larger OST programs in which our students are involved. Next slide. But we know that there's a greater need, and we also know that there's a great community passion and commitment to meet that need. In the remainder of this presentation, we will explore our history with out-of-school time. We'll provide a little bit of data about where we've been and where we're headed, including how we're addressing some of our current challenges. And we'll also identify our next steps in building a sustainable structure to support continued growth, working with our city and community partners to collectively meet our vision for out-of-school time. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful colleagues, Assistant Superintendent Mazza and Director Parabello. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez-Morgan. That has a nice little ring to it. So we have three key areas of focus to support our out-of-school time strategy. Number one is increasing investment to expand programming and access. It's important to have an array of programming to meet the needs and interests of our students. Over the last few years, we have added capacity for targeted high-quality programs that serve students who may not necessarily have access to community schools. We are incredibly grateful for your continued support in meeting this need. Number two, strengthening the OST design. We've also been working to strengthen our OST design to leverage the great resources we have in place and to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support our continued growth. And number three, Somerville Public Schools represents one part of a larger ecosystem. We are committed to building and strengthening cross-sector alliances that ensure that SPS students can access the innovative and dynamic Somerville OST ecosystem that includes a rich array of district, city, and community programs. Next slide. So this slide offers a glance at some of the primary out-of-school time programs in which students are enrolled and the current school year enrollment numbers. The list is by no means exhaustive, but representative of the range of SPS OST programs available to our students. There are many other school-based clubs and activities that students participate in: varsity and sports clubs, robotics, school-based clubs such as writing clubs, visual and performing arts, homework clubs, Girls on the Run, newspaper clubs, and a variety of other clubs that are focused on wellness, and there's many, many more. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Director Parabello.
Thank you, Mr. Mazza. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to give you some information on enrollment for community schools. As you can see from this slide, community schools enrollment has seen a steady increase over the past several years, and we expect this trend to continue. Since the 2016-2017 school year, community schools enrollment has grown more than 40%. We are seeing significant increase in enrollment year to year in the 4 years prior to the pandemic. We are nearly back to the pre-pandemic levels this year. Our projected enrollment for next year already exceeds this year's enrollment by 8%, and we anticipate that we will be getting additional enrollment over the summer as we enter the new school year. We are eager and excited to meet the need, and we are doing everything we can to build a sustainable structure to meet the demand. You'll hear a little bit more about this from Assistant Superintendent Mazza later in the presentation. Next slide, please. This graph offers a visual representation of the community schools enrollment trends. Even in the midst of COVID in 2020 to 2021, we were able to provide 201 students with the opportunity to safely reconnect with their friends and peers in an exclusively outdoor program. I think we all remember that. Our wonderful Parks and Recreation city partners were also part of this important effort, offering additional outdoor programming to expand access during this critical time. Program enrollment has continued to steadily increase as we emerged from the pandemic. Next slide. Our program and staffing is structured to provide students with a variety of enrichment and learning experiences. We serve students in grades pre-K through 6 in every pre-K through 8 school in the district. I am grateful to have incredibly dedicated teams who are dedicated to providing fun and supportive learning environments. Along with our core team of teachers and interns who provide direct service to our students, each site also has a leadership team responsible to coordinating the programming and supporting the direct service team. In addition, we have a centralized team that provides additional wraparound support to community school students across the district. This team includes a full-time clinical social worker and a full-time student services coordinator. Without them, we could not do this work of serving the needs of all of our students. We also bring in community partners who offer specialized activities such as parkour, martial arts, and rock climbing. We are required to maintain a minimum staff to student ratio of 1 staff member to every 2 students for pre-K programs and 1 to 13 for students in kindergarten through grade 6. Next slide. Registration for community schools begins in January for pre-K and K to coincide with our school enrollment process. Our registration process for returning families in grades 1 and above begins in March. Because our pre-K and K students are in different community schools groups than grade 1 or older students, having an earlier enrollment for pre-K and K does not impact space for older grades. Many of our office staff are multilingual. Our practice for several years has been for our staff, including our site coordinators, to offer registration support for returning families and any new families who need it. Returning families and families who are economically disadvantaged receive placement priority, and we also provide financial assistance to families who need it. Our goal is to accommodate as many families as we can. Our biggest challenge has been staffing. The number of seats available is based on staffing predictions. So the information that we're sharing is early to indicate what our staffing will be like for the fall. As noticed in the previous slide, our minimum staff to student ratio is 1 to 10 for pre-K and 1 to 13 for K+. In order to ensure that we are within those requirements, families may be waitlisted as staffing efforts continue through the spring, the summer, and into the fall. Again, our goal is to accommodate as many families as we can, and ideally, all students who are interested in the program get access to the program. Next slide. This is what community schools enrollment looks like for the upcoming school year. And again, this is early to be sharing this information. Normally it is shared in the fall due to the staffing of each building. As noted earlier, we are continuing to see a steady increase in our enrollment trends. Currently, we are seeing a nearly 8% increase in community schools enrollment next year compared to this current school year. Based on our current staffing predictions, we are able to place 768 students. We have an additional 110 students who have been waitlisted as we continue to work on hiring additional staff to meet this demand. Next slide. Unfortunately, we are not immune to the staffing challenges that organizations across the country have been facing this past year. We currently have CS teacher vacancies at every site. And this chart shows the bare minimum needed to remove the students from the wait list. We are working diligently to fill these vacancies to meet the demand. In the previous slide, you may have noticed that Argenziano, Capuano, and Kennedy have the most waitlisted students. We also have the greatest number of teacher vacancies in those schools. Next slide. So what are we doing to address this challenge? We are taking a multi-pronged approach. Our teacher recruitment efforts include the following. In addition to posting on Talent Ed, we've also posted on Indeed to reach to a wider, more diverse pool of candidates. Posting positions on Handshake to reach out to college students, attending job fairs in the community and at local universities, creating more high school level positions to create a pathway for students to advance to higher level positions, sharing positions with our families and school liaisons for referrals. And we are open to additional suggestions that help us broaden our reach. Next slide. And now I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Mazza to talk about our partner programs.
Right behind you. Okay, next slide, please. So this slide shows the enrollment growth of our programs over time. Some of our programs continue virtually in 2020, 2021, which was at the height of the COVID pandemic. So you can see if programs ran, enrollment was down a little bit. But we were thankful that, a lot of our programs were able to still run virtually to have some consistency for our students. And as we have continued to emerge from the pandemic, we are seeing enrollment numbers in many of our school-based programs continue to increase, which is a good thing. We're also bringing in additional partners to provide targeted programming as we identify particular needs. Next slide. So this slide shows you the enrollment figures that were on the last slide, just in a different way. On the left side, you have enrollment number of seats per program. All the way to the right is the total capacity of all students in all of our programs. So when you look at breakthrough in the red, you can see that enrollment has grown each year, and the projection is around 250 students next year. So when you look at that, it just gives you a different way to see how the enrollment has changed and increased over time. Next slide. So investing in our youth. Hang on. We're incredibly grateful for the generous support from the mayor, from the school committee, from the city council and the community in terms of their commitment to our students, which really has allowed us to continue to increase our investment in our youth. This year alone, we've invested more than $3.8 million in out-of-school time programming to support our students. But this investment does not include additional investments that support other out-of-school time programs, such as varsity and club sports and other school-based clubs. But clearly, as you can see, investing in the out-of-school time experiences that help Somerville youth explore their passions and gain skills that they will need to succeed in life is a definite priority that this community embraces. So for that, we want to thank you. Next slide. And again, this slide is another way to envision the previous slide in terms of the amount of funding total and the amount of funding for each program over a set period of time. So you can see that most of our programs, the funding has increased. Some of them remained the same, but there's still commitment to all the programs that you see in this chart. Next slide. So, our redesign. One of the most important steps that we've taken this year is to develop a new strategy and structure for out-of-school time that's embedded into our schools. What the new structure entails is has two core pillars: community schools, after-school programming, and school-based programs and partnerships. All out-of-school time programming embedded in our schools will now be part of the out-of-school time department under the leadership of Director Parabello and Assistant Director Gurecki. Other community schools, district and school-based leadership staff will be taking on additional responsibilities to support school-based programming. We are in the process of hiring a manager of programs and partnerships who will be part of the OST department. This person will be responsible for providing oversight and support to school-based programs and partners and ensuring that supports are aligned. So the benefits of this new restructure: we're creating a sustainable infrastructure to support anticipated continued growth in programming and enrollment. We're also leveraging the skills and resources we already have in place to better support our students, our staff, and our program partners. And we're aligning our supports and expectations across all programs for better student, staff, and family experience. We're also creating a stronger, more cohesive system that recognizes our collective commitment to kids and families. And we're also creating a system that more clearly identifies our role within the broader ecosystem and facilitates and supports our cross-sector work. So now when you look at this last slide, you see who is in the middle. It's our students. They're at the forefront of everything that we do, in school, out of school. And ultimately, like I had mentioned previously, we are part of a larger ecosystem of out-of-school time programming and supports. We are one piece of a larger puzzle that includes at least 3 key pieces. We want our families to have access through community programs and to have choice through a rich array of city programs. Out-of-school time experiences are a gateway to learning and growth. The richer and broader the offerings, the greater exposure students have to the world around them. In partnership with Summer Promise and our community partners, we are committed to building an OST ecosystem that keeps students active, engaged, and coming back for more. So with that, we will take any questions that you have.
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you. Through the chair, either to the assistant superintendent or the director, a request was made that I'd like to follow up on, is that when parents are put on wait lists, that they get more sort of consistent communication about how close they are to being the top of the wait list and things like that. I'm wondering if that has improved.
Yes, so this year we informed families that they were waitlisted in March, a few weeks ago, versus the prior years they would not find out until August. And we did that just to be able to accommodate as many families as we can, but the request seemed to be they just needed to know. So we've done that, and we'll keep them posted on when we'll be able to enroll those families through the spring and the summer.
Yes.
Through the chair, can you offer like concrete timelines on like how frequently they'll be, if there's either like, will they be notified when they're at the top of the list, or will they be notified like on a regular interval that like, here is where you are on the list?
There are, like we mentioned, there's over 110 families on the wait list. So we can figure out a plan on how to inform them where they are or how long. I'm going to have to do some research and figure out what would be the best way to communicate that. Again, we don't want to cause alarm if there's no need, but we also want to make sure families are aware. And so the families that have been communicating with us, we've been sharing that information with them, and we've been asking them to check back, because it's very particular to each family situation with so many schools. And for us, we'd like to be able to try to staff one school at a time, but it doesn't work out that way, depending on where educators live or what other commitments they have to that school. It's not that easy to try to fill vacancies one school at a time. So we're going to try to fill vacancies so we can open up the pool of, third and fourth graders waiting at a Genziano.
Through the chair, if I may. And I think, the redesign of the out-of-school time experience for students, I think that's part of it, creating those systems, the communication systems, where you are on our wait list, the anticipated timeline. So I think that is all part of our redesign.
All right, so I have Ms. Krepschen, then Ms. Dion, then Ms. Barish.
So just looking at the reorganization chart, I'm just curious who the director of out-of-school time programming would report to. Do they report directly to the superintendent, to an assistant superintendent? What's the sort of the next level when you're looking at that?
So you're talking, through the chair, sorry, you're talking about the manager of programs and partnerships?
No.
Well, I see that on there, but at the top is the director of out-of-school time programming.
So the out-of-school time programming, the director reports to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Dion?
To kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Ackman said, another thing that we had heard a lot last year from families was that, like, not only the fact that they are on the wait list, but if they could be given a number to know, like, what number they are on the wait list and whether or not someone who's that number usually ends up getting in. And I was wondering if that is something that's also being done this year.
Through the chair, I think that is something that we are working on. The one thing we do not want to do is give false hope in terms of we will guarantee you get in, especially with the teacher shortages that we do have, but we are doing everything that we can to reassure families that we are working on this. We're hiring staff so that way we can reduce those wait lists as we go. But it is something that we are working on, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because I think it, not necessarily false hope, but just to give someone, a quantifiable, idea of whether or not they're likely to get in so that they can make other plans if needed.
Through the chair, yes, I hear you. We will work on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Barish?
Thank you. I'm just now understanding that when community schools hires a new teacher, potentially, or two new teachers, potentially 20 kids come off the wait list at the same time, right? Because you open a new classroom, which is not, I just wasn't understanding it to that point. And I think, telling a person which number they are on the wait list doesn't necessarily really reflect the likelihood of them getting a spot. So I'm just starting to understand that now, so I just wanted to reflect on that and share that because maybe other people are there too. I do have a couple of questions. One is, I have heard that in past years the wait list was capped, so the wait list didn't necessarily reflect demand, and I'm wondering if you have a sense of whether the numbers that you're able to report now is reflective of community demand, or whether there are 20 or 30 more families who want spots.
Yes, so this is reflective of demand. And even looking at the pre-K and K enrollment numbers for the district, they almost match the after-school demand. And then in terms of the wait list, families still call and ask to be added, so we'll take down their name, but we haven't had many in that department. I feel that when they hear the registration opens, that they'll immediately register or make contact. Again, if we have new families coming into the district, depending on the need, then we'll try to accommodate them as we can.
Dr. Phillips, Mr. Challenger, and myself.
I have a bunch of questions related to the capacity of our different classrooms. So I'll just barrage you with all of them at once. First question is, so my understanding is we don't have to have our after school be licensed through EEC, so I'm wondering where the capacity ratio is coming from. First question. Second question is, I really appreciate the efforts to get more high school kids staffing. Wondering, do we have a formal co-op with the early childhood program at the high school? Can we make that happen so we get more of those kids as staff? And third question is, we've been told over and over again that the number of kids we're able to serve is based on how many staff we hire. But then last year, Mary said something about, but the number of classrooms we have access to at different schools differs. And I just want to check and make sure that really we're talking about staff, not classrooms.
Through the chair.
Community schools is actually licensed through EEC, so we do follow the standards for ratios. We were just visited by our licensure and we passed with some recommendations, but that program is licensed. And your second question? Yeah, so we have tried multiple times to create this partnership with the program at the high school, and we a few times succeeded and got 1 or 2 students, but most recently in the past 2 years, post-pandemic, we became more creative because we used to only hire 1 per school, and now we're up to 6 per school. And we've actually, last year, we actually promoted them into assistant teacher and lead teacher positions for those who stayed here to attend school, or those trying to figure out what they want to do next. And the same for this summer, we're promoting them up to group leaders in the summer, and then those that are staying here will move up to assistant or lead teachers. So that will make a big impact on the future, I believe, with this new pathway that we've created. It doesn't solve right now, but the future is looking optimistic in that sense.
And then through the chair, third one was around, are we talking teacher shortage or space shortage, correct? If we find teachers, we find space. But we need to find teachers first. So prioritize, if we have 2 teachers for the Somerville, we will work with the school to find space for those 2 classrooms, because that's an important piece, period. So it's for us hiring the staff, and then we find the space. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Green, through you. I had a question about the next steps in the planning and the strategy. So there was $500,000 earmarked in the budget for next year. You may not have completed your planning, but I'm curious about how that money is going to be allocated, whether it's to direct services or to strategy and planning or salaries or I don't know what. I also was curious in this next steps diagram, are all of these roles currently hired? And are there new roles? And are there roles on the city side? Because I think one of the challenges I'm imagining and that we've discussed several times is this shared responsibility with the city. So the schools deliver community schools, the schools allow the buildings to be utilized with partnerships, and the schools generally, the district creates these wonderful, impactful partnerships. But we've always acknowledged that we can't fill all the gaps with that, and that there needs to be more support or ownership or shared ownership with the city. So there's a lot in that question, but it was about strategy, the money, the roles, and integration with the city.
Through the chair, thank you. All great questions. The $500,000, one of the things that we're looking at is before school programming for students. We know that there is a need for students before the school day starts to provide some relief for families. But we're also looking at, quality programming, not this drop off and we babysit. We want some value add for students, so we're in conversations about what those things could look like. We're looking at redesigning our box program because we know that was very popular a few years ago and it just kind of fell off. So we want to reboot box. So we're in conversation about before school. The after school piece is we want to strengthen and increase the number of seats in the programs we already have, which will mean hiring more staff. But we also want to invest in new partnerships. And that's where the manager of programs and partnerships comes in terms of bringing new partnerships into the district so we can serve more students. So that's that piece. And then, and you have to remember, community schools has their own budget. Their budget is different, so that $500,000 is different, will be used differently. And then the second part was, and the partnership with the city. So we've been working very closely with Chris Hosman. He was actually part of the interviews for the manager of programs and partnerships because we wanted to make it clear that we're doing this together. And Rosanna has been part of the interviews for the similar positions on the city side. We meet, myself, Dr. Hernandez-Morgan, Rosanna, and Chris Hosman meet weekly to talk about out-of-school time. So I know in years past, we've always talked about the cross-sector work, but we're actually making it happen now. We're having these meetings. We're discussing how we can leverage city resources to serve more of our students, how the schools can leverage the city's resources and the community's resources to serve more students. So that plan is in effect, and we'll continue to meet and to make sure that we continue to increase seats. But again, it's part of that ecosystem. It's not just the Somerville Public Schools. It's the community at large, and it's also the city. And if we combine those three, then we make a pretty powerful team. And that is our goal as part of this redesign, as we're actually making that happen.
Follow-up, you can go ahead and do follow-ups.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Green. It would be helpful to have kind of a matrix org chart that reflects the city staff and the school staff, just to understand. They might not have names, but what the players are and a little bit about the role. The other piece that I'm very curious about, and I forgot to ask as part of the strategy bit, where does research about what are best practices in out-of-school time? Is this part of that $500,000? Are we going to do that internally? Is that something that we're going to bring in a third party? Because I imagine that there's other players out there, bigger districts, that have come up with some interesting solutions that might apply to Somerville, and I feel like that's one of the activities. I'm concerned that I don't want to keep trying to continue with what we're doing because we're having challenges. Are there other ways to address the problem? And we could learn from other districts or communities.
Through the chair, no, we agree with you. And that's why we're taking, and looking at the $500,000 and looking at the current resources that we have and what we can do differently to attract more partners, to get more students involved in what we're doing, both before school and after school. What that specifically looks like, I don't have that answer right this minute, but we can get that for you. And in terms of the matrix, you're talking about a similar chart to what we have up here in terms of this, what it looks like on the city side. We can discuss that at our meeting this week, so we can see them side by side, and then we can work on a community piece, so you have the 3 different kind of matrices. Yep.
That was one of my 2 questions, but I do have one other, which is about the whole first come, first served system. It is never struck me as particularly equitable. It definitely privileges people who can sit around and get online when it opens, which is privileged of a number of sites. It's people who know their plan 6 months ahead. It's people who have the capacity to play the game as it is. And so I wonder if we've given thought to if there are other more equitable ways to distribute the limited seats we have, particularly with an eye towards those families who don't have the ability to pursue other options because they can't afford them or whatever it may be.
Yep. So I don't consider the system first come, first serve. I know that ideology has been out there and repeated several times, but it would be inequitable if it was like that. We have to help families who can't enroll. We do that daily. So families that are economically challenged or need assistance, language support, technical support, we know who those families are, and they are enrolled. They do get priority, families. And the way that we have changed the system asks particular questions around income and things that will help us understand what families need, and it also asks if you need to apply for financial aid. So those families are enrolled, they are given priority. Returning families, families that have been in the district for years, we know who they are. Our coordinators are, like family to them, so they do everything they can to support those families. And then the same with incoming pre-K and K, they come into our office, we support them, as best we can. So those families do get priority. But again, there is only a limited amount of seats, so not everybody, is going to get a seat when they want one.
Through the chair, if I can just add a little bit to that, if that's okay. Oh, Dr. Chris, sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to make 2 points here. We still have a long way to go in this area of opening up access to families, but I just want to make two points. So one is community schools and ELSA SEMA being the exceptions. All other investments that the district have made are to free programming for students. So all of the other programming, Greater Boston Debate League, Greater Boston Breakthrough, Becoming a Man, Calc Project, those are all free programs that the district has invested in some ways to try to push through this challenge that families see when they register for camps, when they register for after school, like this scarcity of access to enrichment activities for students. And the second point was to the EEC licensure. So one of the reasons we are EEC licensed is to open up access through vouchers. So again, small things, but we're trying to make sure that the bulk of the investments and the work that we're doing can open up access to families regardless of socioeconomic status.
Through the chair, and we are always in conversations about, okay, how can we improve? How can we make it more equitable in terms of the access for registration, whether it's we hold more in-person registration clinics, so to speak, before we actually open up enrollment online, is a conversation we actually just had last week. So we're always in conversation about where can we improve, how can we make it easier for families to have access to the registration process. So that's something that we will continue to look at, continue to revise until we get it right.
Thank you. All right, so I have Ms. Parrish, Dr. Ackman, Ms. Krepshin.
I have heard over the years that the enrollment platform can be very difficult to navigate, and that, maybe even from your side, that it's hard to use. And I'm wondering if that is a potential place for investment with some of these funds. Is, changing the platform a possibility, or maybe no other better platform exists that you're aware of? Just curious to know if that's something that's on the table.
Through the chair, it is. I think when we talk about how can we make things better, if the infrastructure we have, the software we're using, makes it more difficult for families, then we need to look at, is there something better? So everything is on the table in terms of the restructure. But again, I want to say that, Rosanna and the team continue to find ways to provide access. I know it doesn't always satisfy everybody and everything, but they're continually working on how can we make things better? How can we get more seats?
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you, through the chair. I would like to apologize because I started off and I didn't say thank you. Thank you for this amazing presentation. Thank you for the thought that you have put into the out-of-school time and how you have equitably attempted to meet just a dramatically growing demand. So again, I apologize for not thanking you earlier, and thank you for being here. This was very thoughtfully done and wonderful, and we appreciate it. I had one more sort of communication type request that I've heard from constituents who are parents of middle school students, that they're hearing sort of in fits and spurts about the citywide middle school opportunities, and that middle school students don't often like to hear about opportunities from their parents, that they like to hear about them from either their, their phys ed teacher, their coach, a counselor who they enjoy, and their friends. And while I know it's hard to harness the power of middle schoolers to communicate with each other, I'm curious if there are sort of other means of promoting the wonderful citywide middle school out-of-school time programming that we have, such as the track team.
Through the chair, that is something we're working on. We know that middle school in general, there's a shortfall in terms of the amount and types of programming that we have. And that's one of the areas that we are looking at to make significant improvements in. But in terms of the communication, no, we hear you, we understand that. And it's one of the things that we're going to work with Summer Promise and the city on. How can we better communicate to families? Because I agree, middle school kids, they don't want to hear from their parents. My 7-year-old doesn't want to hear from me already, so I totally understand that. But yes, we are working on that, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Crepston. Dr. Phillips, did you already go? Ms. Barish? You already went twice, right? Okay.
So I just have a pretty basic question. I'm familiar with all of the programs that you talked about, except for Soccer Without Borders. So could you just give me a, one sentence what they're about?
So Soccer Without Borders is a middle school program for students at the Winter Hill, our MLE students, where they participate in team building activities. They play soccer, but there's also a literacy component to it. So the numbers, when we ran it over the summer last year, I forget what they were, I don't have it in front of me, but it increased to about 59, 60 kids, and they're also participating in a soccer league this year. So they've really built something special in terms of that cohort of students.
And that happens after school?
Correct.
Dr. Phillips.
Apologies, this is not going to be very articulate, but one of the big picture questions that I have as we think about all this restructuring of out of school time is, should the district really be the city's main provider of out of school time services? And I wonder, I know the work that the childcare that we do through community schools, through the camps, is critical to thousands of kids, right? My kids have loved community schools. But when I think about the cities around the country that I think of that have the best out-of-school time systems, like places like Providence, it's not the public schools running these systems, it's some other entity. So the schools can focus on educating kids, providing enrichment services to meet their equity goals, providing the academic pieces of the out-of-school time programming that is mostly childcare. And so I just urge you, like, as we think about how are we restructuring, how are we building a citywide out-of-school time infrastructure, like, let's think about, is this really where the public schools need to be? Or does this service just need to be provided in Somerville and maybe by some other entity so we can focus on academics?
Through the chair, Catherine, can you go to the last slide? I think it might even be the next one. Yeah, so when you think about that ecosystem that we talked about, right, you know, you have our students in the middle, then you have Somerville public schools, community providers, and then our city providers. I think all three need to work in conjunction to be successful. I think it has to be a partnership. I don't think, you know, yes, we've taken a lot of the burden in terms of out-of-school time, but we also know how important it is, and that's not to say the city does not, but I think this cross-sector work and the work that we're doing with Chris Hausman to make this partnership a reality, I think is the way we need to go. And I think it's what we need to pursue in terms of the collective whole between the community, the city, and the Somerville Public Schools. We should be able to reach almost all of our students with different types of programming. But I agree, we can't do it ourselves. We need the partnerships, and that's the thing that we're working on, one of the things with Summer Promise in the city. And the manager of programs and partnerships will be leveraging more community partners to come in as well. So it's like a three-pronged approach, all working in conjunction. Did that help? I can't tell because I can see your eyes, but I can see, yeah.
Conceptually, I kind of disagree. Like, I see your point.
Sure.
But let's see what the city's piece of the puzzle looks like. My thinking is, I would love to see community schools on the city side and us focusing on the WOWs, the end roots. But that's me based on what I've seen in other communities, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Mr. Tone.
Through you, Chair. I didn't even thank you for putting this all together. Thank you for clarifying or kind of dispelling the myth of the first come, first serve. And I don't really know how we can get that out to parents, because there's this huge anxiety, at least that I just see on social media, around, oh my God, I have to sit there in that moment and get that thing through. So somehow we need to dispel that perception. You know, there's a window of time that you can apply, and we don't actually, you know, place students for X weeks or whatever it is that you do. So that's one just piece, because you're doing it here, but let's see if we can expand that messaging. And I have a question, and I don't want this to be perceived as critical because it's come from a constituent to me. Clearly, we're very focused on equity and making sure in particular that our families that have economic needs are getting opportunities to do this, because, okay, there's some other families that are in a better financial position and may be able to find something else for their kid. We don't want them to have to, but we understand that. But one thing that was brought to my attention was sort of the numbers in terms of the percentages of students that get into after school at different schools is very different and very variable. So, like, you know, Argenziano has, quote, 16% of their kids in after school. And granted, I'm using the K-8 numbers, and I know community schools is only through, is it 5 or 6? I don't remember. Grade? 6, thank you. I just don't know if, you know, I want to, I guess, have confidence, because it kind of like, or 50% of the Brown students get placement in after school, and they're K-5, and we know that they don't have. So having a better understanding that we're equitably distributing the staff to make sure that we're meeting demands and needs. I'm sure you are, but maybe making that a little more transparent somehow, because when I just look at straight up percentages, they're like, they go from 50%, which I know Brown is only K-5, so they don't have that like 7-8 group that would change your percentages, down to the Healy, who's got 15%, and the Winter Hill, that's 21%. So that's something I would like to understand a little bit more, even though I know that you're probably doing it. But does that question make sense?
Through the chair. So one of the things when you look at those numbers on that chart, and Catherine, can you just call that back up there, please? Perfect. One of the things that can be misleading, so when you look at the Brown School only has community schools. That's the only thing captured for the Brown School. Most, if not all, of our other schools have other programs within them that aren't captured here. So, for example, I'll use the Winter Hill. You have Soccer Without Borders, you have BAM, you have Girls on the Run, you have after-school tutoring. You also have the clubs that aren't included in any of these numbers. So if we put all those numbers together, I think this would look completely different in terms of the overall programs that schools have. And the reason why we have those programs that are at the other schools is because we wanted to make sure that students who weren't able to access community schools had a choice and were able to access something different in terms of out-of-school time programming. So while that shows you the enrollment and the students waitlisted for community schools, what it doesn't show is all of the other programs that are contained within the schools, which means we're serving more students. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, but I think you also understand where my perspective is, and maybe putting a little more transparency around that. So, and incorporating those numbers.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, okay, third time, Ms. Barish.
Thank you. Now I can't remember what I was going to say. What was it? So I have a question, but I also wanted to respond to Dr. Phillips' question about, who should be responsible for this. I think everyone agrees that it can't all be on the school side, but one of the benefits to this cross-sector collaboration is that in addition to sharing the work, we're also braiding funding streams, which makes all of the programming more resilient and more robust. So if some partner takes a hit financially, it doesn't all fall apart. So that's one of the benefits. And that's what happens in Children's Cabinet. That's part of what happens in Children's Cabinet. And we have a meeting tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that, especially in the context of this conversation tonight. Really quick question, do you know if the Youth Services Director has been hired on the city side?
They are down to 2 finalists, so one was interviewed last week and the second will be interviewed this week. So they're coming close to making a decision.
Awesome, thank you, because I saw that it was still posted on a city site somewhere and I was like, oh, I hope they're closer than that implies. It sounds like they are, so thank you so much. And thank you for all of the numbers and all of the context that you provided tonight. Thanks.
All right. If that exhausts our questions, thank you for your time and thank you for all your hard work. And I know you guys get back to it tomorrow and it's late, so good night.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our presenters for being here tonight. Just a couple of quick updates for the district report. Last Thursday, the district presented its school year 23-24 budget proposal in the public budget hearing. The district leadership team presented an 8% budget that makes significant investments in our programs, initiatives, and staff to promote school readiness. We're continuing to focus on equity and access, especially in the areas of restorative justice and, as you heard tonight, out of school time. The budget also makes investments in social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students as we continue to recover from the pandemic, and it invests heavily in our special education and multilingual learner students. Importantly, it also brings half of the district's ESSER funded, these are the federally ESSER funded positions, off of that federal stream and brings them onto the general budget. We know and continue to reiterate that that federal ESSER funding is going to sunset next October. So we're really trying to set the district up success in the next year and set Dr. Carmona up for a successful first year as the permanent superintendent. I just want to thank the school committee, thank the city council, the mayor, our educators, our team who helped present on last Thursday, and for the public to remind them that we will have a Finance and Facilities of the Whole meeting on Wednesday night, this Wednesday at 7 p.m. for further discussion and deliberation on that budget. Also want to note that we are winding down. We have 6 weeks left in the school year. This is a time where we have a lot of awesome showcasing of student work, chances for parents and guardians to get into schools and see all that your students have been working on. So please keep an eye out with school and educator communication about the many events that will be coming in the next few weeks. I also want to acknowledge this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and these are the folks that make our district run. They're the foundation of our system, and as we have acknowledged, there has been really no more challenging time to teach and to be in front of students than the last 3 years. So just to give a shout out to all of our educators, not only the folks showing up tonight, but all of the folks that do the work in our schools every day. And I will turn it over to Mr. Mazza for 2 other short updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Curley, through the chair. This week, we also celebrate our school nurses. National School Nurses Day is Wednesday, May 10th. The impact of school nurses goes beyond supporting students' health and wellness. Through their work, school nurses are a gateway to access, helping make sure that our students are ready and able to actively participate in their learning. Thank you to our wonderful school nurses for the work that they do to keep our students safe and healthy throughout the school year, and to instill in them healthy habits that will lead to healthy lives. And our team shout out. Tonight's behind the scenes shout out goes to our fantastic superintendent's office dynamic duo, Catherine Santiago and Erica Garcia. I can't see Catherine, but think about the gears that keep a system running smoothly. Catherine and Erica are those gears, constantly in motion, efficiently juggling multiple tasks and projects, and always ready to lend a hand or take the lead. Equally important, they approach their work with creativity and enthusiasm. We are fortunate and grateful to have this dynamic duo as part of our team.
Hear, hear.
And that concludes our district report.
Thank you. Anything in the personnel report you want to highlight?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to highlight 2 impressive retirements. Patricia Creedon, the grade 3 teacher at the Brown, is retiring after 25 years of service with the district. And our social studies teacher at the high school, Everett Roscoe, is retiring from the district after 27 years of service.
Let's see, no questions. We'll move on to report of subcommittees. I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
I move to accept the subcommittee reports as they're in the packet.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Which brings us to an unfinished business. Dr. Curley.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to formally recommend the appointment of Dr. Jessica Boston Davis to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Academics. And if so moved, I would ask the body for a motion to allow me to negotiate that contract.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Dr. Phillips, authorizes the superintendent to enter negotiations with Dr. Jessica Boston Davis for the position of Assistant Superintendent of Academics. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Brings us to new business. Yeah, authorization. Dr. Curley. New business A. go home. Let's go.
Thank you. I lost the thread for a sec. Here we go. All right. I would also like to recommend the appointment of Ildefonso Arellano, for the permanent Director of Special Education for Somerville Public Schools. Mr. Arellano currently serves as the Assistant Director of Special Education for Framingham Public Schools, where he is responsible for supporting the education and social emotional needs of more than 2,200 school-age special education students in Framingham. He has been in that role since 2011. Prior to that, he served as a team evaluation coordinator for Framingham and has a background as a speech and language pathologist. He holds degrees from Emerson College and Boston University. Mr. Alano was wonderful to get to know and meet in the interview process, and I would also like to formally recommend his appointment to that permanent role, and if so moved, would request a motion from the body.
So normally we would have this vote at our next meeting, but given the demand this candidate is in, I'd like to get us negotiating sooner rather than later. So first I'm going to ask for permission to waive the rules. Hearing no objection, I'm going to go ahead and ask for that motion.
So moved.
Any discussion?
I apologize, I was distracted. So what was the motion?
To enter negotiation with the...
Motion to approve Ildefonso Arellano as the permanent Director of Somerville Education for Somerville Public Schools and authorize interim superintendent Dr. Curley to enter into contract negotiations with Mr. Arellano.
Okay, so through you, Chair Green, my question, and maybe it's just a point of reference of past practice. In the past, we actually meet the candidate because this is one of the people that we approve as the school committee. I'm not saying we should or should not, but I'm just sharing that with the body, that usually that candidate comes, we meet with them, and then we vote to approve the appointment. So I'm putting the question out there to the body and to my colleagues of whether or not we want to honor past practice or move forward.
Dr. Ackman.
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Batone, I have heard about this candidate. The reputation precedes them, and while I haven't met them, to your point, I think also to the chair's point, we're in a very, 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 very tight hiring market specifically for this position. And I think it would behoove us to move forward.
I'll call myself, Ms. Patone is on matter of practice right, and I think as a rule that should be the aspiration. I'm going to make an exception in this case. Like Dr. Ackman, this is a candidate whose reputation is in the field beyond reproach, and I am frankly thrilled that we were able to nab him, and I would hate to lose him. So like, I would. My preference would be not to wait another 2 weeks, but that's speaking as an individual. If the body wants to wait and invite him, that is their choice. Ms. Patone.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Green. Yeah, I don't know anything about this person. I've never met them, I've never heard them, but I do know somebody who referred them in, and so I do understand that they're well regarded. I always take pause when we don't exert our authority. This is our responsibility. This is one of our important roles. We were fortunate that the other assistant superintendents that we hired, we already knew, and we were all thrilled, and so there was no need to do that. So I guess what I would say is I understand what you're saying. I understand the circumstances. I just don't want this to become practice by default. And that I really do feel very strongly when you hire an assistant superintendent of special education, this is like one of the most key people in the district, and to, I guess, just disregard our authority always makes me take pause. But if we want, I'm not going to fight this. I don't know if you want to do a vote. It's up to you.
Description.
I'll just comment to say that I completely understand Ms. Batone's point, but I also respect Chair Green's point and Dr. Ackman's point about the need to get this guy and get the negotiation going. But definitely for future reference, I appreciate Ms. Patone bringing up that this is what we've done in the past, and I'll definitely, if we don't do it this time, which I am okay with, keep that in mind for next time or in the future.
I'm going to go ahead and call myself and remind the body that we still have to approve the contract, so we have time to bring them in before the contract is approved. And if we don't want to approve the contract after that meeting, we don't have to.
Through you, Chair Green, so you're saying your intention is if we make the motion to negotiate, which is what the motion on the table is, you're saying that we're going to try to bring the candidate in to meet with the school committee, or?
That was my suggestion, Professor Dr. Curley.
To the chair, I think we can make that happen if that's the request of the body. I will say our finalists went through a round of interviews where they got to meet all of the principals, they got to meet all of the special ed department heads, they got to meet a body with the screening and selection committee. So there are 2 rounds that included a range of educators, admin, staff, and then we added a layer where, because of the nature of the position, they were able to talk with and interview essentially with all of the department heads and the principals as well. But I imagine...
Also with Dr. Cremona, right?
Yes, I imagine we could have him back. I think the tension that has been named is the right tension, that this is a very tight labor market and it's a tricky time. We're running a lot of searches right now, frankly, in the district. So that's the question, I think, before the body.
Yeah, so I guess I would just make the best effort to bring the candidate in would be great, but I don't want to interfere with the process, so thank you.
All right, any further discussion? I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Krupchen. I'm sorry, Dr. Phillips, thank you. I just want to go home. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have a whole bunch of policies here for first reading.
May I?
Please.
Okay, so file LBC and file JIB are the 2 exceptions, so I'm going to start with those. File LBC the revisions were proposed by Dr. Phillips in an effort to streamline the process by which applications for private schools come to this body and are approved or not. File JIB, student involvement in decision making, those revisions were in response to the request from the Student Advisory Council at the high school, and essentially allow more students to represent that body at school committee in any given semester. The old policy said 2 per semester, now it's up to them. The other policies, JB, GBA, GCF, AC, and ACR, were all revised per MASC recommendations based on, I believe it was a change in state law that requires an expanded definition of race. So those policies were revised accordingly. In the process of doing that, we did some expansion of lists of protected classes and some ungendering of language. So they're relatively straightforward changes. They're all in the packet. If folks have questions, I will try to answer them. I don't know if Dr. Phillips wanted to talk about LBC at all, but...
I think of LBC, I think of a lot of what we do for the first time as, gosh, I wish we had the chance to do it again. So the revisions to LBC just take what we learned through the last time we had to approve a private school and pay it forward to the next school committee. So it's a little simpler and easier and engages the right people at the right time.
Any questions from members? All right, those will all be up for second reading at our next meeting. Which brings us to the resolution in support of the Thrive Act. If members have any questions or concerns, we'll vote on it at our next meeting. If not, I will entertain a motion to waive the rules and vote tonight. Since I got no motion, we'll vote on our next meeting. We've done the school building updates. That brings us to field trips.
I move to approve 40 students from the high school ultimate frisbee team to visit Northampton, Massachusetts for an ultimate frisbee tournament. Travel by minibus. Student cost $0. Do I have to say the dates or do I just say the trips? Okay.
Yeah, same both.
10 students from Next Wave to visit Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire. Travel by school van. Student cost $20. 1 student from the high school to travel to DC for National History Day. That student will travel with their mother. 72 8th grade students from East Somerville Community School to visit Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire. Travel via bus. The student cost is $29. And 48 8th grade students from the Healy School to visit Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire. Travel via bus. Student cost $40.
A motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Fatone. Any discussion? Dr. Ackman?
I'm curious, I thought we only had to approve out-of-state travel. Why are we approving the Northampton travel?
It's overnight.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain diploma requests.
I move to approve the diploma request for Yenny C. Morales Molina of Somerville, Massachusetts, and Elmer W. Portillo Ramirez of Lynn, Massachusetts.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Krepshin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Eni and Elmer. I'll entertain a motion on grant awards.
I move to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants and all state continuation grants awarded to the Somerville Public Schools listed below. Private, Tufts Community Grant of $3,000. This grant will allow the Enrollment Office to purchase multilingual children's books and to give away winter hats and gloves for children and caregivers when families enroll. And the Tufts Community Grant for $3,000 for Scale to purchase laptop computers for English as a second language and adult basic education classrooms.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barris, seconded by Ms. Krepshin. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any items from board members? Ms. Patone.
Thank you, Chair Green. I just wanted to follow back on an item from last meeting that I brought up was having a debrief on the superintendent search. I'd like to get confirmation whether or not that you plan to put that on a future agenda. Love to do it before the end of the school year while we have it all fresh in our mind, and getting a date as soon as possible.
Yes, the plan is to make some announcements at our next meeting. Plans to hopefully make some announcements at our next meeting.
Thank you.
On that note, I will be in DC for our next meeting, so while I will be in attendance, Ms. Krepshin will have the gavel. Any other items from board members? Hearing none. Any condolences?
And actually, we talked about standing up for condolences, which I know was past practice, but, we got out of the habit, and so. The school committee would like to extend our condolences to the family of Cindy Reshall, mother of Jeremy Reshall, guidance counselor at Somerville High School.
We are adjourned.